Today we are going to have, we had two industry leaders with us. We have Arndt Soret with us. He is Senior Legal Counsel Privacy at Lonza. And we also have with us Cristina Cojocaru. She is Senior Legal Counsel Data Privacy at Huawei. We have these both industry leaders speaking about GDPR. We're going to talk about a lot of data privacy. We're going to talk about different data privacy laws in different parts of the world. So this is what we're going to do. This is going to be a 45 minutes long session. We have some questions that we will be asking, and it will help you understand different data privacy laws in different parts of the world. Starting with a quick introduction from both of you, Arndt, may I request you to please give a quick introduction of yours, Arndt?
Sure. Since 2 years now, I'm working for Lonza. Lonza, headquartered in Basel, Switzerland, which is a pharma company, pharma and biotech. And actually right now they're pretty big in searching for the COVID-19 medicament and vaccination. Before I was working a lot for IT companies, and one of the best known should be probably Symantec, the internet solutions software and security company. And of course, all of that brought me quickly into data privacy since almost 20 years, huh? But the time flies. Yes, I'm a lawyer, so I'm a German qualified lawyer, but now since 2 years I'm registered in Switzerland as well, in Geneva, and yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Arndt. Christina, may I please request you to give a quick brief about yourself now?
Yes, of course. I'm also a lawyer, but I'm based in Dublin. I have more than 12 years now of experience in advising different companies in different issues around data protection and privacy laws, but also cybersecurity. I work mainly in telecom industry like Deutsche Telekom and now Huawei, and also in digital marketing industry, and also for online gambling companies. Now I'm based in Dublin. I'm working for Huawei Mobile Services, and I'm covering the entire Europe and other job markets. And of course, I'm a lawyer, I'm a member of the legal team, but my focus is on data protection and data privacy regulations. So I could say I have a global experience on data privacy in Europe, but also in Asian regulations and in global projects.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christina, for that. And thank you so much, Arndt, for that quick brief about yourself. Moving ahead, the first thing that comes to my mind is GDPR, since that's something which is in talks everywhere these days, and from past couple of years, I would say. So talking about the GDPR first, and Arndt, I would like to ask this question to you. What's in it and the solution ahead in compliance to it?
Oh, that's a pretty broad question, given what's in it? So from my perspective, and that is what I said already before GDPR, it's all about transparency, data transparency. And data, personal data belongs to you. It's your name, it belongs to you, like your skin, your hand, your body belongs to you. It's the same thing. And so when you give away your name in whatever measures, it shall be given in a way that data, let's say data hosts who get it still are responsible to deal with it in a way that it belongs to you and you can get it back whenever you want it. And I think since GDPR, it's funny actually, because I work in privacy, as I said before, since 20 years. And I always said, like, well, companies just need to, Brussels, EU, Europe just needs to add fines. And I said it in big conferences many times in London and so on. And lawyers were very often laughing about me, like, he's so serious about data protection and didn't really care. But then it happened, huh? Now in 2018, there was preparation work done, of course, before, but then fines were added, 4% of the yearly sales turnover, 20 million euros, whatever is higher. And suddenly everyone thinks now we have to comply. And even the whole world is looking into Europe because GDPR is kind of the strictest legislation in the world, I would say. Even when you think, okay, in China there's this, and Singapore is here and that, and South America even here, not so bad. But still, I think when you're sort of compliant with GDPR, you can pretty sure that you're compliant to the local legislation as well. That's in it from my perspective, but much more, of course.
Thank you so much. Christina, what's your take on this?
I would say that Arndt summarized it very well. GDPR, as any other new data protection regulations, no matter discussing about, even what is happening in Latin America or in Asia, GDPR is placing the consumer in the driver's seat. Yes, so the consumer has all the rights, and the task of complying with GDPR falls upon businesses and organizations. So I would say any company should take these requirements very seriously, not just, but it's important for the high level of fines, but also in terms of, maintaining the customer trust. If you are looking to many industries today, the consumer, the end user, has so many options. And when we are looking to the digital world, I will pay a lot of, importance how any company I'm providing my data to, how it is handling my personal data.
Yep, thank you so much. I really liked the two layman examples that you both gave. You said, Christina, that it puts the consumer in the driving seat. So that's really, makes a lot of sense. And, that's what we have been keep learning about GDPR. And you said that this is like, even if I have given my data to somebody, they should be using it with so much of protection that it is mine. I can take that back at any point in time. So I think those were two great examples, and I think even a layman would be able to understand that. So thank you so much. And coming back to you, please brief us on history of GDPR and tell us about your experience. How did you create company's data protection program?
Yeah, the history of GDPR. It came into force on 25th of May 2018. And before, it was not like before Europe was naked. No, we had the European directives. And the European directives were already pretty much the same, actually. Huh? Christina, don't you agree? Like 80%, 90% the same, I would say.
Yes, fully agree. It was a very good base, a very solid base anyway.
Exactly. Well, that's a good word, a good base, a good foundation. So in that sense, yes. And as I said before, the main thing that has changed was really adding the fines. That was really the key point that made everyone aware, hey, now we need to wake up. And what was different as well, it was directives, European directives. And directives need to be transposed into national laws in every European country. Huh? So still we are 27, so end of the year probably, no, there are no, very, very certainly no UK anymore, 26. But some countries were much stricter than others. Couple of countries kind of were really actually going into national laws and making their national laws strict, even stricter than what was required. And the other countries really didn't care. They didn't transpose it. And that's the reason why GDPR then happened. And yeah. And then, of course, in terms of history, I mean, you have data authorities in every of the European countries. And not only one data authority, okay, one federal data authority, but then you have many smaller data authorities as well. And you must kind of get to know the data authority in France, the data authority in Spain, in Italy, and to really understand what they are most looking for. If one is mostly focusing on consent, if the consent is properly given. Another one focusing on data processing registers, are they all properly filled out within the company? And that is really where I think, it makes actually sense when you have a huge company then to have like in every location, some data officer, someone responsible for your data in the respective country.
Yeah, thank you so much. And continuing on the same, Arndt, would you also like to brief us about the GDPR principles in a nutshell?
Yeah, the data must be transparent. That's very important. Transparency is a huge thing. The purpose, why you have really collected the data. Purpose limitation is a very important point. Lawfulness. Data must be collected lawfully. Data minimization. So you must not collect more data than you really need to fulfill your business needs. Okay, so there's no selling off data. That's kind of an example. You better don't do that. Make just sure that it's really, really secure. Make sure that you're accountable. So data accountability is one of the other principles. Storage limitation is also one. Christina, please help me. Do I forget something?
No, you are saying very well.
Integrity is an important point.
I think these are the main. Ideas that anyone who is watching this webinar should keep in mind.
Yes.
Because it's not just important to comply with the law, and not just GDPR for any country where we are discussing about data protection laws. It's much more the same importance has to be able to prove. So it's important to have this accountability principle very well, known and implemented, and also to know what are the main principles in general, and to do the right thing, to be able to prove that you did your best efforts and you are aware about what you are doing with any personal data.
Yes, data accuracy. Data must be accurate. That is one of the principles as well. Data and everyone, so as you rightfully said before, Christina, so everyone can ask for his data, so it's my data. And so data shall be as accurate as possible. So companies shall really look into putting the accurate data, the correct data into place.
Yes, this is a very, very valid point.
Yeah, I think these are the most important points, Vinay.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Arndt, and thank you so much for Christina. Moving ahead, Christina, this one would be for you. And now we're going to talk about KVKK, the famed rule from Turkey. Do you think, is it aligned with the GDPR and the UAE's application of the GDPR?
For sure, the Turkish data protection law, it's aligned with GDPR. But the same for sure, there are some important differences. To summarize it, I would say that the Turkish data protection law is well aligned with GDPR when it comes about general principles, as the ones Arndt just mentioned. It's aligned when we are looking to the data breaches reporting process, to the response plans, the same 72 hours timeline for notification to notify the authority. It's aligned when it comes about the powers conferred to data protection authority. The Turkish data protection law, it's applicable to any data controllers and processors that are collecting data or processing data collected from Turkey, from Turkish data subjects. So also from this perspective, regarding the liability of any foreign companies, we can say, it's aligned with GDPR, of course, for the Turkish market. In the same time, we need to be aware about some notable differences between the KVKK and GDPR, because this is the first law in Turkey that regulates the protection of personal data. And it was meant to bring the Turkish legislation in line with the EU former directive on data protection, the directive that we were discussing about earlier a little bit. So this Turkish law was drafted before EU had GDPR. And this is why some main differences, I would mention that KVKK does not mention the right to data portability. the same, the position of data protection officer and the mechanism of data protection impact assessment were not stipulated initially, even though the DPO became a compulsory appointment since 2019 through a subsequent law. So there are some differences, and it's important mainly for the foreign companies having branches, having a presence in Turkey, to be aware about these differences. Also, it's important to mention that there are some local formalities for the data controllers in Turkey that are different than GDPR provisions.
And, you know, this is exactly what I was coming out to. So I wanted to understand what are the most significant aspects if we are making a general comparison between the GDPR and KVKK within this framework?
I would say that the main differences from the GDPR are the following. First of all, as I was explaining about the obligation of data controllers on the local market, the data controllers in Turkey are obliged to enroll into VERBIS. VERBIS is the Turkey Local Data Controllers Registry. Also, the penalties are much smaller than the GDPR ones. Let's take an example. In case of breaching the Turkish data protection law, the data controllers are facing fines up to around $250K of dollars. Yes, so we are discussing about other levels than in Europe, where we have some percentage in Europe based on GDPR. I mean, where we have some percentages. Also, KVKK stipulates that just the data controllers shall be held liable for such fines, for the administrative fines, for not complying with the data protection law, without mentioning the liability of data processors when it comes about the fines, as GDPR is doing. Yes, we have in GDPR a very clear stipulation of data processor liability. As a conclusion, I could say that although both laws have the same core idea, they have the same core principles, they are different on the penalties, on the data processor liabilities and their treatment by the law, and also some local formalities that data controllers subject to KVKK must fulfill in Turkey.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. I think you really did a great comparison between both and talked about the most significant changes.
Yes, this will be the most important for foreign companies that would like, you know, that have a local presence in Turkey.
Yeah, absolutely. That really makes sense. Since we're talking about Turkey, let's move towards Spanish Organic on the protection of personal data and the guarantee of digital rights. What are its key issues?
It's a complex question. Spain, it's a big country. It's an important country at Europe level, with a lot of companies being present there. And in terms of key issues, I think I will discuss, I think it's important for our audience to understand the main, let's say, difference. What is specific to Spain, yes? So we have the Spanish organic law on the protection of personal data. And it is called also the guarantee of digital rights. And it's an important topic to discuss about this provision, express provision of digital rights for data subjects, including the digital rights in the labor field for employees. Also, it is the object of the law, another key issue. And I think what you like to know also, it's about the processing of personal data by political parties, which at that moment raised a lot of contradictory discussion in the field of data protection practitioners. So this law has a double object. First, the law adapts the Spanish legal system to the GDPR, but also provides some specifications and some restrictions of GDPR rules. Second, the Spanish data protection law guarantees these digital rights I was mentioning about for its citizens, but also for employees. far beyond the GDPR and far beyond, you know, what is common practice in Europe. As an example, the law includes the provision on the right to internet access, the right to digital education, the right to correction on the internet, and the right to digital disconnection in the workplace. When we are thinking to the right to correction on the internet, I think a very good example is the famous decision in Spain against Google regarding any data subject rights regarding the correction of his personal data on the internet wide web. When we are looking to the digital disconnection in the workplace, for the first time in Spain, we have a statutory provision acknowledging the right of all employees, including those in the management positions, to digitally disconnect outside working hours. Yes, so it's an important part of this local law for the people working and being employees in Spain, yes? So practically this right is preserving an employee's resting time and personal and also family privacy as, you know, a need to improve their work-life balance. And the employers, they don't have much to say when it comes about these digital disconnection rights. So I would say these are the key issues or the main points that make this Spanish data protection law special.
Yeah, and does it cover the application of big data or artificial intelligence technologies to infer a person's political ideology?
No, initially, as I told, there was some discussions, yes, but the plain answer is no, because the Spanish Data Protection Authority came with an official report to clarify the initial discussions. So the Spanish DPA mentioned that the regulation amended this new law does not cover the application of big data or artificial intelligence technologies in order to interfere with a person's political ideology, yes, since this would imply a violation of those persons' fundamental rights not to declare their political ideology. So therefore, we can say that after this report issued by the Spanish Data Protection Authority, this controversy has become without meaning. So the authority issued an official report and clarified what is allowed and what is not allowed to be done, yes?
So things have been categorized in black and white now. So
it's difficult to say black and white, but at least regarding your question regarding application of big data or artificial intelligence technologies regarding my political ideology, the official report clarified this, yes?
Okay.
Of course, there are other open topics when we're discussing about political campaigns and data protection principles.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Christina. I mean, there was a quick look around of different data protections and how they're implemented into different countries in the EU region. And also we talked about Turkey in detail. Thank you so much for sharing those great insights with us. Arndt, coming towards you, I would also kind of like to understand what value do you see in data overall? And please tell us about the obligation to create data processing registers.
Data overall. Well, I think every company, Christina, you work for Huawei, right?
Yes.
I mean, you know exactly how important data is. So, and wherever data you, I mean, so I'm in the biotech science, production pharma world, and of course, I mean, without data, we wouldn't be able to focus on COVID-19 now. So we need lots and lots and lots of data to really make life happen and avoid people dying. I mean, it's a simple truth. It's for our health system. It's so important, data. And wherever you go into what we call under GDPR and EU directives for sensitive data, must make sure still, I mean, when you're taking out some cells, it's personal data, because you can even figure out who is behind that. When you checking the DNA and so on. At Huawei, you won't see that so much, but in the pharma world, of course. When we take out your cells, then we know who is behind it.
Yeah,
Even if
absolutely.
your consent to check what's the name behind the cell.
Yeah.
Luckily, in the normal case, we don't go that far. So at Lonza, quite honestly, I never had this case. But there are more and more companies who could basically do that. It's all about sensitive data, which is much more protected in the GDPR world than just your name and your credit card, which is already very protected. But so, and it's again, it's an asset. So, but as you see behind me, Humanium, it's my human rights association, which I'm running volunteer in Geneva. But that's kind of, it's all about human rights, and human rights doesn't end with us humans. It goes on to nature, as we all know, with climate change and so on. And all of that is so important still, that we can get our personal data out of that. So we don't want to be seen. We have the right to privacy. If we don't want to be seen, if we need our perfect space also to recover, and privacy, it's such an important thing to health. It's really a value.
That's right. Yeah. Absolutely. Christina, coming towards you, how does the concept of fairness apply to profiling, and what are the other key considerations when carrying out profiling for political campaigning?
Oh, this is your favorite topic, I would say, for today with political campaigning. Look, as you are discussing in the beginning of our meeting today, you know, we are going to the digital world. We are in the digital world, and the future will increase this usage of digital, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no doubts. Yes, absolutely.
So going back to your question, in my view, elections, referendums, any type of political campaigns around the world, not just in Europe, are becoming more and more sophisticated data operations. And I think we all can see what is happening on social media. What reaction can be, increased by any kind of data issued, released, or if a company or a party, yes, is sharing the personal data, or is profiling too much, or is not complying with the local laws. So it's also, a very transparent control from outside over each, let's say, political party managing these data protection operations. So this aspect raises questions about the political use, but also abuse of personal data, I would say. For sure, as a general principle, no matter it's, political campaign or any kind of activity, when carrying out profiling, we must consider the fairness of the processing. Yes, I think it's a general common sense principle, this. Thank you, Arndt.
Yeah.
So this common sense principle, I would say, yes, to consider the fairness of the processing includes the potential effects on individuals, on the data subjects, but also on the wider society. So this I would add the fact that no matter the scope of profiling, we need to consider the concept of fairness, mainly in political campaigns or anything related to political elections. And it's also very important to have in mind what are the reasonable expectations of the individuals. Yes. The key considerations when carrying out profiling for political campaigning purposes are applicable for any profiling activities, no matter the purposes, because the persons involved, the data controller, should revise their privacy policy and inform the individuals, the concerned electors, persons, about the profiling that is carried out. So no matter how much I would like to vote with one candidate, I would like to know if his party is profiling me and other individuals or not. Then the data controller involved in these political campaigns should remember that if the data they are using isn't correct, then any profile created and any decision based on that data would also be flawed. where it is possible, I would encourage anyone to try to ensure the accuracy of the personal data they are using. As Arndt mentioned very correctly in the beginning, the accuracy of the data is essential. They shouldn't collect too much information or to keep it too long. So just because your system allows you to retain big quantities, huge quantities of personal data doesn't mean that you should do. Also, going back to political specific purpose, people decisions in this regard can be very easily changed. So if I could be in your profiling pool this year, next year, it might be for me to vote with your competitor. Yeah, so it's very important to pay attention to the accuracy of the data, to keep the data up to date, accurate, and relevant for the profiling each party, let's say, is carrying out. In general, most profiling in political campaigning will be for direct marketing purposes. If this is the case, then the data controller should stop the profiling. Yes, the persons, responsible persons, should stop the profiling as soon as a data subject is reaching them with an object, with his object request, object right. Yes, there are no exceptions to refuse this objection, because, as I said, I think most of them in this political campaigns, most of the players are doing profiling for direct marketing purposes.
I have one more question on that. So, so what happens with the personal data processed after a political campaign, and can our personal data be used from one campaign to another?
In general, it can be acceptable to keep personal data to use from one campaign to another, but you must consider the following aspects. And once again, I think it's much more a matter of common sense, not to be expert lawyer in data protection field. And let's take an example. This year you have my personal data for a local campaign. I agreed, because I'm very keen of my community and, let's say, my local elections. But you shouldn't use this for another purposes, let's say for European elections, for another purpose of processing the same personal data, yes? So you should carry out a review of the data you have gathered previously. If your organization is splitting, ending after a political campaign, and this is happening in the real life, you must destroy the personal data securely and in certain circumstances. So in general, yes, it is acceptable to keep personal data to use from one campaign to another, but any person should pay a lot of attention to what are all the legal requirements applicable in this case. Also, they should assess whether they are able to keep our personal data securely. Yes, what they have informed us, data subjects, at the point of collection, our personal data for their political campaigns. So there are some, so the general answer is yes, but with a lot of red flags.
With
yes.
a lot of ifs and buts around it, with a lot of questions around it. Yes, you're absolutely right. Arndt, coming towards you, how do you make multi-jurisdictional companies compliant? I wanted to know from you on that.
Yeah, well, data protection from my perspective, and that is what I follow since 20 years, it's a change of mindset. It's really that people just have to get into the feeling that, hey, personal data is mine and I'm kind of the controller of it.
Right, yeah.
And in that sense, multi-jurisdictional teams is the same thing, basically. You have HR, you have IT security, you have sales, you have marketing, whatever else department you have. So, and you just try to find the ones who are really open to kind of can influence a little bit your little department or big department, depending on, and try to get them curious about data, because it's curious. Curiosity is important for everything anyway, but also on top of it's just the thing. And when you get the people's curiosity, then you get also their way of yeah, dealing and then wanting to be transparent on the one side, but on the other side, really wanting to protect people's data, personal data, companies' data, and it's really a feeling to get into it. Well, yes, and so what I've done, and basically every company, so it's like in the last, my gosh, I always forget the time flies so fast, 20 years, so it's like every 5 years I change, it's like, yeah, 4 big companies. Anyway, so yeah, what I always did was creating a privacy task force. So that's always, it was my name, or was privacy task force, call it whatever you want. But then where you meet like at least once a month, and then where you have people of multi-jurisdictional teams along in Spain, in Turkey, Christina, in Greece, wherever you get people from the various departments in the various countries into it, and where you talk at least once a month about technical things that are going on. In GDPR, it's a TOMS, the technical and organizational measures, very important. So from my perspective, it's always IT security, extremely important to get the IT side of things right. And then when you get a good feeling for these people and they get a good feeling for you, that helps a lot already. And GDPR is also, it's for those who don't know, and you have the responding time when the data protection authority comes. Typically, you have 72 hours to respond to their requests. And only then, when you have really done your homework and you're pretty clear on where is my personal data and what sort of buckets data processing registers, where do I put my personal data, in which departments, where is it, where does it sit, then you can really reply in the 72 hours. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. And then, tack, fines may apply in whatever amount. Because when you didn't do your homework, of course, you're much more.
You become vulnerable, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Vinay.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much. And you really explained it beautifully. So this brings us to the last question, and I would like to have 2 cents from both of you on this. This brings us again towards the GDPR and the last question for the session today. How GDPR, and let's start with you, Christina, how GDPR and other data protection laws application can be further improved? So let's talk about the future now.
You know, I don't believe in perfect things. So no matter how good can be everything, even this GDPR, and it is indeed a big step ahead compared with the former legislation, of course, it can be improved. Now, I'm working for a very innovative company. I'm a lawyer, but I'm passionate about the digital world. So from my end, I would say that considering the continuous development of the digital world, the development of all technologies in all industries, but mainly of the artificial intelligence, I think it's essential to consider how data protection laws application can be further improved in this regard. And here I'm referring to, let's say, the complementarity between data protection and innovation in general, which is an objective that a correct understanding of the GDPR principles, of GDPR concept, and any other data protection laws, because we see this trend also in India, in Brazil, so in any country, yes, how this complementarity can work. Without it, without a very good and correct understanding of the GDPR principles, concept, and rules, protection might only be formal, won't be an effective protection, and it won't be applicable to the business needs and also to the community needs. Yes, and here I think also for the health industry is the same issue. The development of new products and services can be unnecessarily blocked, while also we need to protect and to secure the data subject rights. However, I would say it is very important, particularly important, to point out how, you know, improperly restrictive can be some interpretation of the GDPR or any other data protection laws, and this, let's say, too restrictive interpretation should be avoided, because sometimes, yes, I know it's a huge volume of work also for the European bodies, but I would say that some detailed opinions from data protection authorities and from the EU bodies regarding the interpretations of the right not to be subject to an automated decision, the purpose limitation, data minimization principles, as well as the purposes of processing and legal basis for artificial intelligence. This, I think, would be a very much welcomed step from a lot of industries. And I'm referring also here to the connecting cars aspects. A lot of industries that are aiming at the end to provide better services, more innovative services for the end user, but also to protect the data privacy right of any individual.
Okay, fantastic. Arndt, may I request you to give your 2 cents on this, please?
Well, you just need to look into the introduction to GDPR, basically, where they clearly say we do not want to diminish business. So my wish is just that data protection goes hand in hand with business, and that we go really into the right direction altogether. And for my larger thing, as you know, as I just said before, human rights, that's my thing as well. We have a convention on human rights since 30 years. So why not a convention on data protection worldwide? Why is it only Europe that is so strict, so
yeah,
larger?
Absolutely,
yes,
I think
it's a good point.
Yeah, I think it brings us to a question. I mean, why can't we do it for the whole globe? And the data is important everywhere, be it India, be it Brazil, or anywhere in the world. So yeah,
there are laws, but the more they go hand in hand, that would be kind of, for me, an ideal thing, so to say. The more we so one thing where you see it all the time is now climate change, where we all suddenly realize, hey, we are all together somehow. 196 countries, okay, but suddenly we must really walk hand in hand, and we feel solidarity between everyone, and that would be kind of my wish for personal data as well.
Absolutely, and I think it'll make more easier for industries and companies to work from different jurisdictions, and it'll be easier for them to adapt these rules and kind of have an easier way out to make sure that their teams in different countries are equally efficient and have the similar rules to follow. So I think it really brings us to a right question, and with this, I would like to thank both of you, Arndt and Christina, for sharing your 2 cents on these different data protection laws and covering us almost the entire Europe and the EU region. Thank you so much for that. For our viewers, thank you so much for joining us and watching this video. For more contents, you will be able to find a lot more contents available on our website, ClickAway Creators, as well as on our YouTube channel. Keep watching and keep gaining this information from the industry leaders. Thank you so much for joining us.